I wouldn't know how to bill for that. Shift. Time to begin. Come on. All right. I'm going to start off with some reading. from Albert Bates. The Great Pause, Week 46, Wolf Kill. This is a 6-minute read, apparently. It's 2:02, so it should be done sometime in the 2:08 minute. In 2020, federal protection for the gray wolf was removed entirely. Now the entire species teeters on the brink of extinction. In August 2019, 7 game wardens in black Kevlar body armor descended upon a remote mountain valley home in Northern California to issue an arrest warrant on a 23-year-old 6th-generation rancher. Mobile phone signals from local cell towers had placed the young man near the location where a wolf, tagged with a GPS collar, had been shot and killed. A few days before the wolf was shot, it had been spotted feeding on a calf that had died in a mountain pasture. The 2-year-old male gray wolf was known to the wardens as OR59, the 59th wild wolf GPS collared in Oregon. Now 500 miles from his home pack, the young gray had entered California along snowy trails of lava gravel descending to the valley through juniper and sage, and was likely hunting for rodents until it caught scent of a dead cow. Wolves began re-migrating into Northern California from Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Montana, and Wyoming after California listed them endangered in 2014, ending their legal killing. The killing didn't end in those other states, however. In the 3 years prior to OR59's arrival, 31 wolves were shot by ranchers in Oregon and Washington, where they are not legally protected. California ranchers and hunters were outraged by the protection law, thinking wolf numbers would grow as they decimated herds of wild deer and elk, then encroach on ranches to feed on sheep, cattle, and poultry. Quote, "I can't believe you guys would waste your time to investigate somebody for shooting a miserable wolf," close quote. The grandfather of the young man told the arresting wardens, quote, "I'm not raising cattle to feed the wolves," close quote, said a neighboring rancher. On social media, locals were bragging of their kills using the code SSS, shoot, shovel, shut up. Quote, I don't know you'd find a whole lot of people up here upset at someone shooting a wolf, especially after it's been seen feeding on a calf," the local sheriff told the wardens. Wolves have evolved to self-regulate their pack sizes based on available food. Where populations of prey are limited, packs stay small by individuals out-migrating or breeding less. Ranchers within the hunting range of OR59 run some 100,000 head of cattle, much of that on state or federally owned lands like the mountain pasture where OR59 was first seen. The dead cow he was later scavenging was actually struck by a car and had died near the roadside before the wolf found it. This is most often how wild wolves prey on domestic livestock. As solitary hunters or in very small packs, they are unwilling to expend the energy or physically risk engaging in combat required to bring down the large, healthy animals. Under normal conditions, wolves key in on prey that is meek, infirm, or vulnerable. They are predisposed by instinct and learned behavior to go for animals that are easier to kill rather than those at peak physical strength. In this way, they affect a valuable balance. They cull animals suffering viral, parasitic, or vector-borne infections. Indirectly, they reduce the populations of ticks, mosquitoes, fleas, and other carriers of disease. Wolves quell epidemics. Just pausing here to make sure I'm actually streaming. Let's see. Yes. Chronic wasting disease, CWD, is an always fatal, contagious neurological infection striking deer, elk, and moose. It turns their brains into spongy mush, causing emaciation, abnormal behavior, loss of bodily functions, and death. Studies of monkeys and laboratory mice that carry human genes show that CWE may eventually jump to humans through contained food or touching infected surfaces, unless, that is, wolves, cougars, bears, and other top predators are allowed to keep the disease in check among the herds of wild prey. Since it arrived in 1967, CWD has spread geographically, but its worst outbreaks are likely yet to come. Wolves in North America were rescued from the brink of extinction in the 1970s by the Endangered Species Act, but in 2010, management was transferred to the states. In the following years, more than 5,000 wolves were slaughtered in just 7 states, even as the CWD epidemic spread. In 2020, federal protection for the gray wolf was removed entirely. Now the entire species teeters on the brink of extinction. Wyoming is known for having the most notoriously hostile attitude toward wolves in North America, with the possible exception of Alaska. In over 85% of Wyoming, lobos, like coyotes, can be killed year-round for any reason, no questions asked. And with the culling of wolves, CWD has been rapidly spreading westward across the West, infecting and killing mule deer and white-tailed deer. Nearby Montana allows unlimited wolf harvest outside parks. Probably not the best ecological strategy for containing CWD, said biologist Dr. Gary J. Wolf. Living in a free-fire zone is no fun. Living in a free-fire zone is no fun, so it should be little wonder grays like OR-59 are moving to California. In The Botany of Desire, Michael Pollan describes how the evolutionary strategy of certain plants, apples, maize, marijuana, allowed them to proliferate and dominate their ecosystems by virtue of their appeal to hominids. The partnership was great for these species. Similarly, the evolutionary strategy taken by those ancestral wolves who evolved into dogs 100,000 years before the present has been enormously beneficial for dogs. Not so much for wolves. Dogs are now found everywhere in the inhabited world, hundreds of millions of them. The descendants of the primordial Neolithic wolves that remained wolves are now sparsely distributed, often isolated into small, inbred populations and constantly under threat of extermination. Unlike dogs, who are genetically predisposed toward human friendship, wolves have no motivation to help people hunt. Unlike their dog relatives, they would never have brought humans food nor led them to prey. Like bears, jackals, and lions, they may have scavenged near human villages, but they were too dangerous, especially around children, for our human forebears to have tolerated them any more than they had to. Never mind adopt them. They became like crabapples and teosinte grass, I don't know what that is, found only in remnant patches once the two-leggeds remade Earth's landscape to suit their tastes. Now they are on their own, wary, vigilant, not knowing whether death awaits them just around the next bend in the road. Next week, I'll look more at the path trod by dogs. And love creation's final law, though nature red in tooth and claw, with ravine shrieked against his creed. Who loved, who suffered countless ills, who battled for the true, the just, be blown about the desert dust, or sealed within the iron hills. Alfred Tennyson, 1849. All right. Oh, there's somebody in the chat. What do we got? It's Ben Rubber. Actually, it's Rodney's first one in. Hey, Rodney. And then Ben Rubber says, oi. So, yeah, I just read the thing that you sent by Albert Bates about the wolves and the chronic wasting disease. That's CWD's pretty scary stuff. All right. Let's see about Jim Kunstler's latest. No, that ain't it. How about this? The game is on. It's on. Reminds me of an Ice-T song. It's on, motherfucker, and you can't turn the shit off. Anyway, the hijinks playing out in financial markets instruct us that politics finally comes back to the soundness of our economic arrangements, no matter how far out into the asteroid belts of psychopathic ideology the nation veers. For instance, we're about to find out how little race and gender hustling actually matters to the common good of this land. After their successful prank with GameStop, the subreddit vigilantes are aiming to send the price of silver to the silvery moon now, and in the process drive hedge fund privateers and bankster short sellers into insolvency, even if it wrecks the financial system. Do you doubt that the system, led by the clueless and feckless Federal Reserve, was always beating a path to financial suicide? 2 decades of trying to paper over America's broken business model with money from nowhere, and failure of the authorities to regulate the games being played around that, switched off the price discovery mechanism of markets. Does that sound abstruse? I'll explain. Price discovery is the main function of markets, to send correct signals as to the true price of everything, soybeans, iron ore, stocks, and what have you, and, most importantly, the exact price of money itself, borrowed over a period of time, that is, term interest rates, meaning the cost of debt. The price of silver, and of gold too, have been among the most manipulated, suppressed, and perverted for many years because the rising price against paper currencies would signal the failing value of money, which would inform the people that their standard of living is falling, and nothing stirs up political anger like that. So the regulatory authorities looked the other way when their cronies in the big banks such as J.P. Morgan played games to suppress precious metal prices with a revolving short-selling scheme that regularly knocked down the price to discourage buyers from investing in precious metals. It's been 50 years since precious metals enjoyed any official peg with the US dollar, but for 5,000 years previously, gold and silver were money itself, and paper currencies became mere representations of that money. That relationship ended in 1971, when President Nixon closed the window that allowed foreign countries to redeem gold in exchange for dollars they accumulated from their commercial trade of goods. And our dollar being the world's supreme reserve currency, the rest of the world's currencies followed. Despite all efforts since then by banking authorities to denigrate the value and the role of gold and silver in financial affairs, the barbarous relics retained a persistent influence in men's minds because of their intrinsic qualities. These were the vested energy they represented from mining and refining, their physical durability, portability, and divisibility, their freedom from counterparty obligations, and, especially in modern times, their vital usefulness in electronics and other industrial applications. The latter quality is greatly reinforced by the powerful wish to transition from a fossil fuel economy to an alt-energy economy of solar cells and wind turbines, a wish that probably won't come true. And so, as promised by the subreddit vigilantes, the silver price was up around $3 or 10% in overnight trading going into this week's Monday open. It looks like they mean business. And that could mean many things. The most obvious is a very conscious effort to punish the high-hats of Wall Street for years of lawless game playing that made them ultra-rich and left everybody else in the country impoverished. Some of the vigilantes frankly expressed the desire to wreck the degenerate banking system altogether, a great purge of evil to restore something like God-fearing accountability, moving toward a fresh and honest restart of markets and banking. I'm not convinced that we would get any such orderly restart in the sense that global banking could be reconstructed along pre-2020 lines. Rather, wrecking the banks in a daisy chain of shattered obligations would be an express ticket to the Palookaville of neo-medievalism I've been warning about, and probably in a sharp, disorderly, violent, and deadly episode of losing everything that has made us civilized. In any case, the country has already prepped itself for some kind of spectacular failure, with all the social mindfuckery of the past 4 years that eventuated with the empty shell of Joe Biden in the White House, and millions of his supporters swept into an epic hysteria of manufactured moral outrage over pseudo-realities initiated by academic racketeers and then weaponized by our politicians. But the game is on. Whether you like it or not, this may be the last opportunity to get your minds right before you lose your country and your future. All right. What do we got here? Chronic wasting disease sounds fun for humans. Sounds like a nightmare to me. I was into rewilding for a bit. Fascinating how wolves even affect the flow of water. They keep the grazers from overgrazing. But wolves are scary because they're big and strong. And they're smart and they hunt in packs. And if it's 3 of them against you and you don't have a rifle, you are done. Actually, if it's 1 of them against you and you don't have a rifle, you're done. All right. Hey, let's close some tabs. Like Twitter. Twitter. As if Twitter. All righty. The man who isn't there. Yeah, that would be Joe Biden. What else should we check in on? How about we go to Zero Hedge? Silver squeeze. Physical silver shortage versus paper silver. Ooh, that kind of follows on from what we were just talking about. Silver futures suffer sudden wave of selling after surging most since Lehman. What the Hunt brothers can teach us about gamma squeezes. Oh, that sounds way too technical for me. Physical silver premium to paper hits record as market tears in 2. Now that's interesting stuff. Let's go with that. Let's go with this one. By Bullion Star. So, submitted by Torgny Person. Bullionstar.com. What is Bullionstar.com? 404. Couldn't find it. All right, well. Whoops. Let's see. Back to... All right, before I dive into that, what do we got? Oh, Parker's here. Hey! Reddit says that the silver squeeze is a distraction by the Wall Street lords to take attention away from GameStop. The Wall Street Bets subreddit? Just because money loses value does on it... Just because money loses value does on itself mean the quality of life is lowered. How about just because money loses value, that doesn't mean that the quality of life has lowered. Yes, but the posts are about it, are reaching the top of all. Let's see. Let's go to Reddit Wall Street Bets. Come on. Daily discussion. Thread number 2 for February 1st, 2021. That's now. That's today. Wow, look at that. 27,000 comments. So how does this work? Maybe Parker can tell us. Daily discussion thread number 2 for February 1st, 2021. Buy AMC. I bought 50 shares of AMC. Damn. Screech just died. Rip. Buy AMC. All right, let's see how AMC is doing. So the question is, which AMC is it? Because when I do a search for AMC, you get AMC Enterprises Holding, AMC Networks, AMCI Acquisition, AMC AMMCF stock. I'm guessing it's this one. Yeah, here are stories about Reddit traders. Now, I heard a story about a company that had a ticker symbol similar to one that similar to GameStop. So it was just people buying that one by mistake that caused it to run up in price. But yeah, look at this. So that's from the 27th last month. So it jumped up really high and then fell back down again. But still, it's at 1260. Heck, even I could buy, or it's actually 14 and a quarter. I could even afford to buy one of those. You know what? Just for fun, let's buy one share of AMC. I'm not going to take any profit. Just buy one. Come on. Oh. Will Webull not let me buy AMC? I guess the price is just falling now. Yeah, nothing happens when I click the buy button. Huh. Maybe it's my trackpad because I can't even switch tabs here. What's going on? Oh, buying power is insufficient. Please cancel open buy orders if there are any and try again. Oh, I don't have funds. I don't have funds on account. And I can't just hit my my bank account. Oh well. What are you using to buy? Let's see. Yeah, I use Webull. And it's not them preventing me from buying it. I just don't have enough funds on account to afford a single share. I think that's what they mean. What's this? Watch list, stocks, markets, screener, customized account. Huh, no. I have a cash balance of $33. I should be able to buy a share. Oh, because I've got quantity 10. Let's go to quantity 1. No. Oh, 10's the least they'll let me buy? Let's try that. Okay, here we go. AMC, New York Stock Exchange. 1 share. You are placing a limit order to buy 1 share of AMC. If executed, your order will be filled at $14.29, which is it's like a dime higher than the current price. Oh. Alrighty, I just bought 1 share of AMC. Have a profit and loss of 0. All right, let's put that away. Have you been watching Louis Rossmann recent videos? The ones on the Bloomberg and Washington Post articles had me saying, damn right. No, I have not. What do we got here? I wanted to do crap with the stock market after graduating high school, but didn't have the 1,000 for the minimum. I have been exempt from the final in economics class because I won the stock market game he had going on all year. Oh, nice. All I did was sell things that were going down and bought things going up. Well, that's basically how, that's the behavior that the traders try to manipulate. They try to look for stocks that are going down because people are panicking and buy those, the falling knives. And then when stuff is riding high and people are feeling confident and pouring money into it, that's when you sell. Let's see. I don't know who Louis Rossmann is. I'll tell you, the videos I have been watching are by this guy named Mike. Let's see if I can find him. How about this? Mike. It starts with a B. How about this? Mike looks at the map. So, Mike Beach. Obviously, I cannot play this guy's material. It's his material. I can't play it on a live stream. But his stuff, if you like the Jim Kunstler material from the era of Geography of Nowhere, you will absolutely love this guy's videos. He just uses Google Maps and Google Street View and Google Earth to, really dig into why some cities work and why some don't. And, I'd recommend some over others, but really they're all good. It's just the ones that I've liked best. He has one on Kansas City. I grew up in Kansas City. He's got one on Baltimore, which is really good. He's got one on Savannah, Georgia that I never thought I would be interested in, but Savannah is quite the amazing story. So anyway, Mike looks at the map. Definitely check some of these out. All right, Louis Rossmann. Do not know who that is, but let's check him out. And if he's got a blog, I can read some of his stuff. So I'll subscribe. So that's him, huh? All right. Louis opens new MacBook Air, immediately loses mind. eToro forcing stop losses on game traders. Why? All right. Well, hey, let's see if he's got a blog. Yeah, YouTube. Nope, looks like he's pretty YouTube-centric. Oh well. Louis Rossman started doing Mac repair videos, but he comments on things that catch his interest. Okay. So it is the same guy. Very good. All right. We'll read one last thing and then bail. Let's see. What shall we read last? Let's go back and take a look at what else is on Zero Hedge. Oh, come on. You'll Get Nothing and Like It, a short-selling morality tale by Generally Risky Thoughts. That's from yesterday. I guess this comes from Caddyshack, a movie of watch, I'm ashamed to admit, I've seen only a part. Somebody needs to proofread their stuff or get somebody else to do it. I hope you don't think the worst for me for this omission. Meantime, the entire world is abuzz about the doings around GameStop. And though I must fight to be heard against the associated din, I feel no less duty-bound to weigh in on this topic, because it has significant implications for a risk management perspective. Let's start with the punchline. Our title is aimed at you, my newly lauded army of micro-investors. Though it brings me no joy to say so, I do indeed suspect that this fate may await you. So what was the headline again? You'll Get Nothing and Like It. A short-selling morality tale. An unavoidable retelling of the narrative wants to follow disclaimers. Wants the following disclaimers. First, what has been reported may not match up with the facts, which I believe are deeply misrepresented in the financial press, in the mainstream media, and in the blogs, and even in the latest edition of Field and Stream magazine. I believe, but do not know for certain, that these sources have gotten it wrong, that this was anything but a redo of the biblical David versus Goliath story played out in the battlefields of electronic trading. Rather, I think it was a Beyond Thunderdome 2 Enter 1 Leaves sequence involving behemoth, battle-hardened combatants and rife with contours that have played out in various iterations since time immemorial, and certainly since before the Bible was written down on stone or parchment. Further, to the extent that we are able, we will refrain from naming names because we're too classy for that shit, right? Okay, now, let's begin. At the epicenter of it all is a short squeeze in arguably overvalued illiquid stocks, most notably GameStop, or GME, a buggy whip vendor of electronic entertainment, the owner of retail stores and malls that no one ever visits, where it seeks to sell products that the world now purchases almost exclusively online. Other than providing a pre-pandemic meeting place for hormonal teenage males, not exactly a high-margin business, even before COVID, I'm not sure it has a raison d'etre of any kind. So the stock attracted short sellers like moths to a flame, or like me to you. And as recently as a few weeks ago, they were comfortably poised to push the valuation of GME from its prevailing levels below $1 billion down to $0 billion. The shorts then began to concentrate, and the market saw an opportunity to do some squeezing. Over the second half of 2020, GME rose from about $4 to a little more than $20, which, by my accounting, is a five bagger. Not sure what that means. Okay, fair enough. This sort of thing happens routinely in the short-selling game, oftentimes with the short sellers emerging as winners, but then the squeeze itself started to take on an epic urgency, catapulting the stock at one point on Friday to a market capitalization of over $25 billion. To place this in context, a purveyor of obsolete Nintendo cartridges and Blu-ray copies of Caddyshack is at present worth more than companies such as State Street, world's largest custodian, and Republic Banks, NASDAQ, Consolidated Edison, and Tyson Foods, to name just a few. Yeah, that is absurdly overvalued, but the point isn't to keep it at that level. The point is just to push it up that high and make the hedge funders make good on, the calls, so that the hedge funders end up losing money, lots of it. Prominent short sellers were caught in the whirlwind, unable to buy back shares at any fathomable price, and facing margin calls that they could not meet. issuing from the brokerage houses that had lent them the stock to sell. One fund in particular was thus forced to fold itself into the strong but not always loving arms of its competitors, with the only other likely alternative being ignominious bankruptcy. All of the above caused perhaps the biggest market disruption since that bizarro day last spring when crude oil traded negative. It spark-plugged the gallant 500's worst week since October and spilled over into virtually every sector and asset class as investors quite sensibly reduced risk across the board so as to find a quieter space to assess the sequence and its attendant consequences. It was, if you'll pardon me for so stating, the type of small black swan that was the theme of last week's publication. So maybe I was right when I suggested to y'all that black swans do matter. But here's the thing, my loves. I'm pretty convinced that this whole narrative about a bunch of Redditor day traders taking down the big, bad hedge fund dudes is not only wrong, it's counterproductive. To begin to understand this, we must revert to the truism first coined by Cicero, later purloined by Vladimir Lenin, and ultimately misquoted with great hilarity by Walter in The Big Lebowski. Specifically, when trying to determine who was behind a certain sequence of events, qui prodest, qui bono, to whose benefit, is a good place to start as any. To which I will add, et dictum. Who was informed? Well, the fund in question has institutional prime brokers that were watching its book tick off in real time. Its order flow was mapped to big market-making institutions, many of which are themselves large hedge funds. These mega-capitalized institutions, who, by the way, are at the top of my pantheon of effective risk managers, were in a position to observe the trajectory of impairment of the misanthropic fund at the center of this morality tale, and were thus able to purchase the shares at geometrically rising prices from this fallen, forlorn fellow, and by doing so, benefit from his losses. And maybe, just maybe, they were able to lay off most of these shares to the teeming millions of proles trading their PPE money on a platform named after the famous good-hearted thief of Sherwood Forest, albeit on an uninformed basis. Is that it's not uninformed, it's uniformed. Okay. Albeit on a uniformed basis, I envision remote agents of these big institutions using social media to feed the buying frenzy. As matters now stand, yes, a Goliath has been cut down to size. Yes, a bunch of day traders have booked windfall profits, but any of them that didn't sell out and lock in their gains should know this. They own shares in a zombie company that will certainly soon see its stock price come crashing down and may end up, in short order, nothing but a memory of Game Boy console days gone by. If so, oh, my riders of the hooded Orinth, it's sad but true, you'll get nothing and like it. And who benefits? The bad institutions, of course. Through it all, the rich grow richer, but that again is a story that repeats itself time and time again, since the unit of investment account was not currency, but rocks. And though you need not join me in these conceits, one parallel that comes prominently to mind is the demise of MF Global. MF was a trading shop taken over and speedily run into the ground by former Wall Street titan, New Jersey Senator Governor John Corzine, who, when bounced from the roles of government, decided to try to regain his glory in the realms of investment and finance. His is the only name I will name. Soon after his arrival at MF, he bet the farm, making concentrated speculations that the yields of government bonds in southern European jurisdictions, then in the high single and low double-digit ranges, would come careening down. His counterparties, some of whom used to work for him, accommodated him by taking the other side of these trades, noting all the while that he had finite liquidity with which to sustain these positions. So they crushed him in the markets, traded in a way to keep these yields rising, issued endless margin calls, which tapped out all of MF's funding liquidity until ultimately it was forced out of business. But the colossal irony here is how right Corzine was about these original trades. Spanish and Portuguese bonds now yield not double digits, but rather fractions of 1%. Didn't matter, though. Corzine failed the risk management test, the wages of which were the demise of the firm he'd just taken over, and all of the benefit of large institutions with deeper pockets and better risk management. I could offer other examples, but won't. Instead, I'll just state my belief that this whole GME saga is nothing but another scene from the same playbill. What remains for us is to take inventory of current risk conditions, with an eye toward deriving what lessons we can from what has just transpired. So here's what I got. The GME short squeeze arguably catalyzed and is at minimum at the epicenter of a visible risk reduction cycle / rise in risk premium. While I do not believe that it will lead to a widespread, long-standing market reset, the disruption by all means could continue for an extended period of days or weeks. The characteristics of the new pricing patterns are highly idiosyncratic, implying they are not particularly visible in most factor models. Counterintuitive pricing patterns are marginalized in market segments bearing little or no relation to GME or other prominent names in the cycle. They are also evident across a broad range of sectors and asset classes. I believe that the cycle will run its course, and for those who have prudently managed their risk, its conclusion will present an appealing opportunity for incremental risk-taking. Patience and discipline are the keys here. No need to catch the precise turn. If I am correct about the opportunity that is forming, it will extend for a significant period once it begins. In the meantime, my specific risk advice is as follows. Shade towards the conservative in portfolio decision-making. If risk reduction is appropriate or necessary, cut down on exposures, i.e. gross down. In other words, as I am fond of stating, if you want to reduce risk, 'tis better to remove items from your portfolio than it is to add to your holdings. In other words, hedges are not likely to be effective mitigants here. Unless your investment hypotheses have changed, preserve core positions. This is a very bad time to liquidate well-vetted speculations that have been indirectly, adversely, and in all likelihood temporarily impacted by recent events. As we always try to relate, the short side is considerably riskier than the long side. Current events both reinforce this and offer a warning for portfolio construction on a permanent basis. And finally, let's say a prayer for those who got nothing and liked it, as well as for them for whom this fate looms large on the horizon. Know, though, for the latter group, there's a way out. It's called prudent risk management, which is the key takeaway from this morality tale. In the saga described above, those who embrace this holiness not only avoid our titular fate, but routinely find themselves the beneficiaries of the misfortunes of those who don't. I can't emphasize this enough, particularly in these troubled times. Lord knows we've been whacked around a good bit lately, and the hits seem to still be coming. But you and I together are too many for even these. Because we know these lessons when we encounter them and have the ability to emerge stronger from their rendering. And to the rest, I can only offer that time-honored blessing which God conveyed upon Cain after casting him out from civilization, which has long served as the salutation for this publication. Timshel. I don't know what Timshel means. Anybody? Here, let me check the chat before I look it up. Well, actually, I'll look it up and then come back to the chat. Oh, except in my many, many tabs, which one was Zero Hedge? This one. Timshel. Duct tape. Let's go. Timshel. Thou mayest, thou shalt, meaning that men will surely triumph over sin, but the Hebrew word timshel, thou mayest. Timshel, man's ability to choose between good and evil. Here is an individual responsibility and the invention of conscience. You can, if you will, but it is up to you. This little story from the Bible turns out to be one of the most profound in the world. I always felt it was, but now I know it is. John Steinbeck. Steinbeck's East of Eden is a book about us all. Descendants of Cain, who, according to the New Jerusalem Bible, appears to be the builder of the first city and ancestor of stock breeders, musicians, smiths, and possibly prostitutes. Like all of us, Cain had free will to decide between good and evil. In this semi-autobiographical work, Steinbeck does not envision a virginal Eden as our birthright. As much as we inherit Cain's curse, we also inherit his ability to redeem himself. All right, it's short. I'll read it all. The main theme for East of Eden turns on the correct translation of the Hebrew word timshel. Translated differently in various versions of the Bible, the word appears in the Cain and Abel story of Genesis when God discusses sin with Cain. What is the true meaning of this passage? God promises Cain that he will conquer sin. Thou shalt rule over him. God orders Cain to conquer sin. Do thou rule over him. God blesses Cain with free will, leaving him to choose. Thou mayest rule over him. By studying the passage in the Bible, Adam Trask's Chinese servant, Li, helps characters Samuel and Adam understand the intended original meaning in this passage from East of Eden. This was the gold from our mining. Thou mayest. The American Standard Translation orders men to triumph over sin, and you call sin ignorance. And you can call sin ignorance. The King James translation makes a promise in thou shalt, meaning that men will surely triumph over sin, but the Hebrew word timshel, thou mayest, that gives a choice. For thou mayest, it is also true that thou mayest not. That makes a man great, and that gives him stature with the gods. For in his weakness, and his filth, and his murder of his brother, he has still the great choice. He can choose his course and fight it through and win. Here is the choice each of the characters in East of Eden face, as does ultimately every human being. No matter how deep-rooted the sin, there is always a chance for redemption. In the authoritative Orthodox Jewish translation from the Chumash, the Stone Edition, the passage in question reads, "Surely if you improve yourself, you will be forgiven. But if you do not improve yourself, sin rests at the door. Its desire is toward you, yet you can conquer it." All right. Followed that thread all the way to a 404. Here we are. I know Zero Hedge from seeing things from them posted in R Conservative, so I think of them as right-wing. Yeah, they're moneyed elites. They're hedge funders, actually. The guy is very happy about his own writing. His premise is a false dichotomy. It can be both whales versus whales and Reddit retail traders versus whales, big money. It does not have to be either or. I disagree with this guy that it's the same old, same old. I really like Crystal Ball's referencing the psychology of fairness experiments to the GME stock things and other events recently, like riots and Capitol storming. People are sick of getting screwed. Tim Shell, my cynical paraphrase would be, I try my best to divide the world into good and evil. If it's not easily understandable or categorizable, it's evil. So, Ben Rubber, on the crystal ball thing, yeah, she was referencing the ultimatum game, where you have, we'll say, $100. It's some amount of money, and one party gets to arrange the division. If I say, and the other party can only take it or leave it. So, if I divide it 50-50, of course you're going to take it. You couldn't be more fair than that. But what if I say, well, since I'm in the position of creating the division and offering you the choice to take it or not take it, I'm going to, push it in my favor a bit. How about 60-40? I get $60, you get $40. Well, your choice is get $40 or not get $40. Yeah, you might as well take $40. But by that logic, if I divide it up 990 or 99.99 and you get 1 cent, I get almost all of it and you get 1 penny. Most people will reject that deal. The 1 penny, while logically speaking, mathematically speaking, it's more than nothing. It's better than nothing. It's not fair, and you won't put up with that. And so it turns out that most people reject the offer in the ultimatum game when it gets down to around 70-30. And they do so on the bound, the grounds of fairness and indignation at unfairness. Yeah, I liked that as well. All right. Well, at this point, I better fire up the old Adobe Fresco. Got to have something to send to Rose so she can post it to Instagram tomorrow. And then after over to Studio and get back to work on graphics needed for the new Geb website. Alrighty, so let's take this, put it back on the other screen, and let's put a fresco on the screen you guys can see, and boom. Yes, open, do that. Do that. Very good. All right. All right. And since I don't plan to be talking while I'm drawing unless somebody asks me a question, what do we got here? What was the channel where the guy looks at cities in Google Maps and analyzes the economic metabolism? Well, if it's the one I was just talking about, it's Mike Beach. Let's see. Michael Beach. This guy. So here, I'll put this in the restream chat. All right, new messages. What do we got? What do we got? Okay, I'm going for now. Might be back later. See you, KMO, Ben, and chat. Almost finished with Chris Maggi's Small Farm Future, talking about cities he referenced a 19th century Germany term, doubling distance, the distance it takes for the transportation cost to equal production. Ever listen to Chon? It's instrumental fun. I wonder if you'd like it. I don't know. Let's see. Chon. Huh. Well, it's somebody's music. I clearly cannot play it here. Yeah, all the music that I play on these is here in the here in the YouTube audio library. This is stuff that's safe to put in videos or streams. And you know, I have these few at the top that I always play, so you're starting to recognize those. Let's see. Let's just jump further down. Find something new. Let's see, how about something that is dark ambient? What's it called? Sloppy Clav. Turn it down a bit. Here we go. Filters, can I blur? I don't think I can blur. If we take live brushes, watercolor. Wash. Interesting. What's this? This is In the Sweet By and By, Zachariah Hickman. Oh, it's not going to start again because I don't have the page, that tab forward. All right, and I'll look at the chat here again in just a second. Do you think immigration issues, people wanting less of it because of job scarcity, is a symptom of overshoot or the effects of the inequality that the resource extraction cities invite? Let's try that again. Do you think immigration issues, people wanting less of it because of job scarcity, is a symptom of overshoot or the effects of inequality that the resource extraction cities invite? I don't know that either of those is an attractive explanation. I think it's more to do with the moneyed classes wanting cheap labor and knowing that an abundance of labor, both skilled and unskilled, takes bargaining power away from workers. I think the oligarchs would be pushing for open borders, regardless of issues of overshoot or resource extraction. Alrighty. Didn't really mean to make her groping her own chest. We'll move that on. Move that on down here and change the position of the hand to something like that. Let's see. Time is it? Oh, it's after 3. Time for me to refresh my coffee and walk around for a bit. So let's put the music back on. Or, I suppose, staying lazy. Funky ambient. Broken, Pop, Happy, Patrick Patricius. Tangent. Let's see. The last comment is the name of the article. Eventually, I'll read it. Comments with links don't seem to show up on your screen. No, you probably can't post links. You can send it to me via email and I'll post it. I'll paste it into the chat here. Whoa, that's not what I was thinking. That's kind of interesting. Let's see. The Colonel. Country Folk Dark, Zechariah Hickman. Maybe I'll pair it with this particular piece of music. Let's see. Put that away. And bring that over. And go to my email. What do we got here? Stuffed Shirt Restaurant, Pasadena. No, let's go. Stuffed. Interesting. So 19th century fashion. How is my coffee cup empty again already? So Parker's back. Oh wait. Oh, I'm seeing old comments now. Let's see. Right. Ben, remember, comments with links don't seem to show up on your screen. No, they don't. Some people can post links and others can't, and I think it's up to YouTube to determine who's trustworthy and who isn't. So, take that with a grain of salt. But anyway, if you want to send me the links via email, I will post them into the chat. All right. Here, let's take a little break and read something else. This is from David Sirota. This is the Midday Poster. Midday Poster. Corporations bankrolled GOPers as they undermined democracy, by Walker Bragman. New documents detail a flood of corporate cash as Republicans tried to help Trump block the election results. Today's quote. Why would we want to further the perception that the government cares for the needy and the elite, but not for the middle class? Have we learned nothing? Representative Rokana, Democrat, California. Today's reads, GOP senators are trying to gut COVID survival checks. Trial finds South African coronavirus strain poses reinfection risk. Oh. Wall Street gears up for a second bout against Reddit traders. Well, you know what? I can't resist that one. Let's read that one. Reuters. Wall Street gears up for second bout against Reddit traders. This is a 4-minute read by, wow, what a name. It might take me 4 minutes to figure out how to pronounce that. Svea Herbst Bayless and Suhato, or I don't know what language it is. I'll just do it totally phonetically. Sujato Rao. All right. Boston/London, Reuters. Wall Street is gearing up for another week of market mayhem with signs that the retail frenzy that pumped up the stock prices of the likes of GameStop Corp. and AMC Entertainment Holdings, Inc. is spreading to other assets. Speaking of which, let's see if my trade went through. So, yep, I own one share of AMC and I've lost 37 cents on the deal so far. But that's because I paid more than it was trading for at the time. Anyway, cost me $14. And I did it just to help screw with the hedge funders. All right. Some of Wall Street's largest hedge funds are still licking their wounds after retail traders sought to drive up the prices of stocks that were heavily bet against, resulting in large losses for major investors. Melvin Capital, the hedge fund at the center of the GameStop drama, lost 53% in January, but received commitments for fresh cash from investors in the last days of the month, Reuters reported on Sunday. Melvin ended January with more than $8 billion in assets after having started the year with a roughly $12.5 billion in assets, according to a person familiar with the matter. Wow, that's quite the attribution, a person familiar with the matter. On Friday, Citron Research's Andrew Left, who spent 2 decades building his brand as one of the world's best-known short sellers, turned his back on publicly detailing company shortcomings following an intense backlash against him and others who said video retailer GameStop's stock was not worth its price. We saw the might of a new investor base in terms of their ability to shape not just the fortunes of an individual stock, but the fortunes of a large market segment like the Russell 2000, said Sunil Krishnan, head of the multi-asset funds at Aviva Investors. Amid the wild price fluctuations, the amount of position covering last week by U.S. hedge funds buying and selling was the highest since the financial crisis more than a decade ago, according to an analysis by Goldman Sachs Group Incorporated. Nevertheless, their market exposure to stocks is still near record levels, the investment bank warned. According to Goldman Sachs Prime Services, this week represented the largest active hedge fund degrossing since February 2009. Funds in their coverage sold long positions and covered shorts in every sector, the investment bank wrote in a note late on Friday. Despite the active deleveraging, hedge fund net and gross exposures on a mark-to-market basis both remain close to the highest levels on record, indicating ongoing risk of positioning-driven sell-offs. Signs are mounting that retail traders who moved the market last week are setting their sights further afield than just U.S. stocks. On Thursday and Friday, the price of silver rallied, taking gains to around 10% since messages began to circulate on social media platform Reddit, urging retail investors to pile into the market and drive up prices. The price of gold has also rallied. Such market moves have brought into focus the growing heft that retail traders have on financial markets, which had been dominated in the past by larger institutions. What's been surprising in the last few months has been the scale of retail participation has started to move the dials. What's been surprising in the last few months has been the scale of retail participation has started to move the dials. That sentence does not scan. What's been surprising in the last few months has been the scale of retail participation has started to move the dials, said Paul O'Connor, head of multi-asset team at Janus Henderson in London. That doesn't make a bit of sense. If you looked at the data a couple of months ago, you can see it's happening. You can see it's been happening. It's not like these guys woke up last week, O'Connor said. Wow. I do not follow that. Anyway, I emailed that article to link in chat. Let's see. Let me put this over on the other screen before I go to my inbox. Refresh. There we go. Hey, Les. We're talking about the markets. We're talking about GameStonk and silver. So here's something that Benaberber just sent me. I have not read it, but I will read it right now. Now, this is further afield than the markets, but I'm sure we'll find some hidden resonance here. Urban ecological footprints, why cities cannot be sustainable and why they are a key to sustainability. Okay. Ooh, can that be enlarged? How about just Control Plus? No. Oh, yeah. There we go. Okay. There we go. It is sometimes said that... how long is this anyway? Oh, just one page? Okay, great. It is sometimes said that the Industrial Revolution stimulated the greatest human migration in history. This migration swept first through Australia, Europe, and North America, and is still in the process of transforming Asia and the rest of the world. We refer, of course, to the mass movement of people from farms and rural villages to cities everywhere. The seeming abandonment of the countryside is creating an urban world. 75% or more of the people in so-called industrialized countries now live in towns and cities, and half of humanity will be city dwellers by the end of the century. Huh, I thought we were already past that half. What's the date on this? Benarebber, do you know when this was published? This seems to be from the 20th century. 96, yep. Okay. Although usually seen as an economic or demographic phenomenon, urbanization also represents a human ecological transformation. Understanding the dramatic shift in human spatial and material relationships with the rest of nature is a key to sustainability. Our primary purpose, therefore, is to describe a novel approach to assessing the ecological role of cities and to estimate the scale of the impact they are having on the ecosphere. The analysis shows that as nodes of energy and material consumption, cities are causally linked to accelerating global ecological decline and are not by themselves sustainable. At the same time, cities and their inhabitants can play a major role in helping to achieve global sustainability. Starting premise. Our analysis starts from the premise that the late 20th century marks a non-trivial turning point in the ecological history of human civilization. For the first time since the dawn of agriculture and the possibility of geographically fixed settlements 12,000 years ago, the aggregate scale of... and that's it. Wild. Oh, I see. Access through your institution to view subscribed content from home. So, yeah, I guess I'm not allowed to read the whole thing. Let's see. Yeah, behind a paywall. That's what it is. Well, Les, what are your thoughts on GameStonk? Or on silver, for that matter. Okay. I absolutely, positively have to get to drawing now. So... So this is Nietzsche and his unassailable self-regard. That's what I'm drawing. Let's see. Sorry, I haven't looked at the chat in a while. We'll do that now. Oh, there's nothing new. Oh, wait, there is. From Les. Okay. Well, my broker didn't buy the equity today because she couldn't find the symbol. I hate hearing about GameStop all the time because I missed out on 200,000. As to silver, we'll see. I have a crazy Lezic conspiracy theory. My broker didn't find Sprott Inc.'s ticker, and it moved up $2 today, which is irksome. Huh. Interesting. Why do you not just get an app like Webull and just make the trades yourself? Is it a geographical thing? Anyway, let's move this on over there. But first, let's see. Need to look at some Nietzsche hairstyles here. He has some great ones here. We'll put it back over in the other screen. So here he is from his crazy days when his sister was looking after him and letting his mustache get out of hand. But here we go. Well, for some, he's got crazier hairstyles than that. Although, wow, he's got quite the widow's peak going. I think that's just a mirror image of that. Yep. So here he is in his younger days with his Teddy Roosevelt glasses, and look at that hairstyle he's got going. Or how about, there aren't that many pictures of him. Just see the same ones over and over. Let's try. That one. This one. All right. Let's go something simple like this. If it's recently cut, that's easy. All right. No, it's my mother's broker account. I have an app for my account. So I was doing some internet research today, and I found out that JP Morgan actually holds a lot of physical silver. And yet it's shorting a lot of SLV, which is the silver ETF. Huh. Well, let's have a look at SLV. See how it's doing. Well, let's see. So it's trading around 25 at the beginning of the year. Now it's up around 27. That's not much of a bid up. Oh, this is the silver ETF though. Interesting. So over here, Les, these are my vast holdings. They total around $300. I bought one share of AMC today just to be, just to participate in the punching of the hedge funders, and I've lost a whopping 84% on my gesture, or 84 cents on my gesture so far. All right, let's put this away. You all hear the train? Let's see. I need to put the Jim D. Solid battery? Question mark. What do we got here? So let's see. And yet it's shorting a lot of SLV, which is the silver EFT. Last year, Samsung came up with an ingenious solid battery design using graphene and silver. Graphene, huh? Okay, finally getting around to those, what are those? What do you call them? Carbon nanotubes. Graphene is a similar substance. Let's see, let's see. As opposed to the one that has some kind of fluid. Most fluid batteries use the fluid as an electrolyte, says Jim. There are porous membrane electrolyte batteries. A solid electrolyte is better than a liquid one apparently. I think that the dendrites, which form over time in the gel medium, they don't form in a solid state battery. It's my understanding. Safer for my motorcycle, says Jim D. I assume, among other things, it doesn't leak. I hear the train, says Lezik. Choo-choo, says Jim. Yeah. Amtrak only carries human beings out of Vermont these days, not in. And even I couldn't even get I can't book an Amtrak out of here. They just don't run the Vermonter anymore because of the pandemic. All right. Coffee time. Meow. 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 I hear you, cat. I do. Yeah, you just keep meowing. Eventually I'll get in, won't I? Yeah, that's how it works. We both know it. I wanted to pretend to be a hard ass about it. Yeah, you get yours. Just a second. Here. Yeah. There you go. Dendrites would be a good electrolyte medium? No, they're... Oh, dendrites are a problem for solid as well, huh? You know, I think it's Honda. Honda has refused to acknowledge the battery-powered electric car has won the EV race, and they are still planning on making hydrogen fuel cells. You know, the basis of their next generation cars. And the big benefit of hydrogen is that it's a liquid fuel. You can fill your tank quickly, or fill your fuel cell quickly. And people are used to it. You know, they're used to going to the gas station and pumping something into their car, and the something would just be hydrogen rather than gasoline. That's Honda's thought. Jim D says Ford had a liquid aluminum battery electric decades ago. Yes to Honda, says Jim D. So Jim, you're into the hydrogen fuel cell as well. Answers with Joe did a deep dive into it. They seem pretty inefficient. Let's see. They had a stupid battery management system, one that failed prematurely. So my theory is that JP Morgan is front-running silver for Tesla, which already has a partnership with Samsung. If Tesla can buy out First Majestic Silver Company or something similar, Tesla stock will make sense at current price. Yeah, my investments in Tesla are negative right now because, because everybody had to sell off all kinds of stuff in order to meet their margin calls or their, to cover their short sales of GameStop. So everybody, lots of strong stocks are flagging right now. Let's see. No to fuel cell. Yes to criticism of Honda. Oh, okay. Let's see if I can find that video. Nope, don't play. Don't play. Anyway, hydrogen fuel cell cars aren't the dumbest thing, but... So here, I'll post this link in the chat. This video is worth your while. Jim, I'd be interested to get your opinion on Joe Scott's coverage here. No to fuel cell, yes to... Okay, I already read that. So, yes to returning to drawing. Let's see. All right, once again, I've lost the chat. Let's see. Tesla having, let's see. Tesla having a partnership with Samsung is pure speculation. My thought didn't form right as a sentence. Wonder why Honda's battery division was so subpar. Well, because I think they put all their best people on hydrogen fuel cells. Do watch that Joe Scott video. I mean, if not now, later. It's definitely worth pondering. Let's see. Does anybody want me to open a Zoom call? Anybody want to jump in? And if I see anybody saying yes, I will start the call. If not, I won't. Let's see. Let's get back to the drawing. Okay, this is going to be a very small drawing, so I should not be wasting a bunch of time on it. Let's just get to the ink. Ink. Bring it way up high, and let's get to it. Oh, my fitness band is telling me to get up and exercise, and I've been ignoring it more and more habitually. Let's see. Hey, and this isn't Fresco. I can zoom in. Let's see. Maybe it was to do some underlying inefficiency due to some sort of cultural quirk slash corruption. Like the overseer of the battery division was just the son of some important politician or something. Oops. Or could be that Honda just thought that hydrogen fuel cells were going to be a thing. Did it again. Come on. There we go. It's supposed to be completely desaturated. Okay, it is. Kind of gives the impression of a peach tint to me. All right. All right, I saw movement in the chat. I will attend to it in just a second here. Oh, what do we got? What do we got? Regarding the silver price going up, I don't think the Reddit folk have anything to do with it. Think the price was bound to jump anyway, and they just got on the train before it turned express. Well, it's my understanding that various parties consistently take actions to depress the price of silver and gold, because if it, the stronger precious metals get, the weaker the dollar looks. And it could be that the GameStonk affair has interrupted the resources available to people who would otherwise be deliberately depressing the prices of precious metals. How's Ed doing, by the way? Well, you don't follow him on Instagram, I guess. He's still in Mexico, as far as I can tell, and posting pretty pictures. Let's see. Here, let's... whoops. Okay, Instagram. And somebody sent me a message. I'll look at that later. Let's see. How can I find Ed? Just go home. Well, there he is. Top of my feed. All right. So here's some stuff that Ed has posted to Instagram in recent days. Puerto Vallarta. Oaxaca. Puerto Vallarta again. Oh, that's funny. I like that. Them Mexicans, they know a thing or two about art, don't they? Particularly street art. Sayulita, Narayit. Ooh, look at that. Yep. That's ocean. I recognize it. Ceiling fan. Very nice. Ooh, look at that. New construction. The Aquanista. I like that. I like that a lot. That is very pleasing to my eye. Ooh, and that. All right. Good job, Ed. Oh, okay. Now I'm just looking. I do this all the time. I will go from tab to tab looking for the thing that I'm doing, and then I remember, you know what? It's not in a browser tab. It's in Clip Studio Paint. All right, what do we got here? Oh, okay. Glad he's having a good time. Yep. So we'll bring this back over here. And there we go. White. Pure white. All right, new messages. What do we got? What do we got? You, an ocean or a mountains kind of guy, KMO, meaning if you could choose only one. Huh. I like both. I don't know. It would probably depend on other factors. Like, what would my living situation be in either position? Which mountains are we talking about? I wouldn't really want to live in the Himalayas, even though I'd love to, go hike some long trails in the Himalayas. Wouldn't want to live there. How about you, Les? Oceans or mountain? Jim D says, got through most of the video. Meh, not wrong. What inspires the meh, Jim? Ooh, way too fat. Let's try that. What do we got here? Oh, zoom. How did you discover Keith Preston? Love his summary of the election compared to El Salvador and staged wrestling entertainment. Was on point. How did I? I think somebody approached me. Yeah, it was Humectress X or something, or somebody who uses Humectress in their moniker. And he approached me about being a guest on the C-Realm podcast. And I said, well, have you been on other shows? If so, hit me up with the link. And Keith Preston used to do an interview show where he would interview people. And so this Humectress person was somebody that Keith Preston had interviewed. So I got to know Keith Preston while basically, interviewing somebody else or, doing a little research on a potential guest. The meh was familiarity, says Jim. Let's see. Wish it was somewhere in writing or somewhere I could share to my friends and family who get caught up in the red-blue Overton window. Well, if somebody's going to commit it to writing, it's going to have to be you, Ben River. Les says, I'm a sun worshiper and love to swim, so I'd choose a nice, warm, sandy beach. Then again, I never really experienced skiing. No, I've never snow skied. I've water skied and enjoyed it quite a bit. Oh, yeah, right. Zoom call. Let's see. His books aren't available at my library. Might buy his 2016 book on anarchy. Came out, would you go to Mars as a colonizer? No. If so, what's the longest duration of time you'd go for, or would you be willing to take a one-way trip? No. I don't ever expect to go to Mars. I have no desire to. I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's not always brilliant in his public pronouncements, but he said one thing that I thought was really funny. He says, we've sent probes to all the planets in this solar system, and Earth is the best one. I agree. Yep. Now, my answer assumes a normal human lifespan. If I'm alive 200 years from now and Mars is a comfy place, I might go. But no, not buying that one-way ticket. Definitely not. All right, Zoom call. Going to set it up now. Here I go. La, 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 la. Okay, host a meeting with video off. Launch. Connecting. Yep, that's me. Join audio. Checkity check. All right. And now, invite. Copy invitation. Alrighty. Invitation has been... All right. There you go, Jim, or anybody else who wants to jump on the call. So is there a passcode? Yes. Oh, I would have reset that if I hadn't realized. Okay, 879295. It's not so long. But anyway. And let's put a little texture in that jacket and then we'll be done. So actually, do it the easy way, like that, and like that, and that, and that. Now, materials, pattern, clothing. Looking for a tweed or something like that. That might work. Let's try it. Ooh, let's try it much smaller. Yeah, something like that. I like it. All right, done. Sold. And let's see. Oh, admit, Jim D has entered the waiting room and I was ignoring him. All right, you are admitted, Jim. Ooh. Heavy hum.
Heavy hum?
Heavy electronic humming sounds, yes. Vroom, vroom,
my end?
vroom. Yeah, I'm guessing so. I don't think I have any appliance here that's burning through that much juice. Let's see. Knock, knock, says Jim. Who's there, says Les. Jim. Jim who? Jim D. Where there's supposed to be a joke in there somewhere. All right. Let's go to the background.
We'll keep looking for one.
Yeah. Let's see. I hear a cat. That would be my cat padding around on her 3 legs. How many cats do you have, Jim?
Just a single one.
Just one cat? That's amazing.
Why?
Well, if you don't take active steps, they multiply just on their own.
Somebody else took active steps for us.
Good.
What is going on here? Huh. Oh, well. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right.
Oh, cool.
Took a road trip. That was nice. Saw some new faces. Saw some faces.
I was going to say, you and the old ones would be nice just to see.
Yeah, I only saw my kids for a day, unfortunately.
That's a day.
It is a day, yeah. It's one day more than I would have seen them otherwise.
Yeah. Did you have to distance from them, or do you just screw it?
Screw it is definitely the order of the day. Let's see. Oh, what am I looking for in this menu? I'm looking for... Where is it? Convert to drawing color. So what's going on? I'm on the wrong layer. That's what's going on. All right, try that again. Yep, there we go.
In my days, crayons didn't have options. They just made crayon-like things.
Yes, they just made marks on the paper, and yet now there's not even paper.
Oh, Lessick, thank you, sir. Jim's got an all-American, manly type of voice.
Oh, that's true. That is definitely true.
That's right, an all-American, manly type of voice. Little Zap Brannigan there.
Yes, that Brannigan who was William Shatner, very thinly disguised William Shatner.
Oh, yes. Shatner had longer trouser legs.
Well, he had trousers. Zap just had his little tunic. It didn't cover much.
Yes, and it was velour.
I didn't remember that detail.
So one of the dirtiest Futurama jokes was in the first Zap Brannigan episode, and very few people got it.
What was it?
At the very end of the episode, Zap had just had sex with Leela.
Oh, yes.
And to close the episode, he said, and this is a paraphrasing, but there's a key element in there that I'll try to keep intact. I just had sex with a one-eyed alien. And in the end, isn't that what going to space in life is really all about? Well, if you diagram the sentence, and in the end is a run-on sentence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you separate it out grammatically, it's, I just had sex with a one-eyed alien, and in the end. Isn't that what life is really all about? And the only reason I caught it is because at the end of him saying it, they paused just a little too much. Oh, they're queuing for joke. What's the joke? And then I went to credits and I'm like, what's the joke? And I wrote it out. Aha! It's an anal reference. Yes. Excellent. I could have a voice career, man. Well, I could have had a voice career. I settled in for podcasting instead.
And and a day job with an actual paycheck, which is not to be.
Yeah, well, there's that, you know. Me likey paycheck.
Yes.
I got me a job.
A job that only calls upon you to drive the bus for 4 hours a day.
Oh, I'm up to 5 now, man. I am
Uh-oh.
pushing the limit.
No, they're slave driving, huh? Okay. That's enough of this. This is going to be a tiny little thing on a website. There's no reason for me to have put this much effort into it, but let's save as.
Oh, this is just a doodle of Nietzsche?
It's hard to explain, but it's just a graphical representation of his unassailable self-regard.
It looks like his contempt for his fellow man is shining through.
Yes.
Benny Rubber, my day job is transit operator. I drive transit in Seattle.
Mm. And how goes that? Any adventures to report?
It's what?
Any adventures to report?
No, I had last week doing riding a desk as part of my plum union position, I guess.
Okay, we got the extra hold hair gel. 19th century fashion. I'm most tempted here to just steal something. Let's see. So, Jim, talk to us of solid state batteries and hydrogen fuel cells and Honda.
I just watched the video you referenced, and it said Toyota was the one that was going for fuel cell.
Okay. Could well be then.
But,
I mean, if you just watched it, I'm sure your memory
I just watched it, yeah.
Better than mine.
Okay. So back when I hung out with a bunch of geeks and did electric cars using really old battery technology, we always dreamed of getting better batteries because there are only 3 things wrong with electrics: the batteries, and the batteries. So everyone was thinking, well, what about solid state? And back then that meant capacitors. So capacitors don't have any chemical change in them. You just shoot a bunch of power in there and it stays for a bit, and then you discharge it really fast. The advantage is you can have it kind of fill up slowly and discharge quickly, but you could also charge the thing as if it were a battery. The problem is they have a limited life if you use them as batteries. But so that's what I think of as solid state. There are batteries that have paste electrolytes and gel electrolytes, things like that are not fluid, which is really good. So back in '97, I was going home from work and I got hit by a stolen car. And of course, my motorcycle fell on me and it dripped acid all over my leg and it ruined my pants. And other than that, I was fine. But that's why I decided when I'm getting an electric, it's not going to have a liquid electrolyte, which is a safety thing.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No. I just said gotcha, as in understood.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, they have semi-liquid electrolytes as opposed to solid state. So it's But it sounds like that silver graphene uses the graphene as some kind of electrolyte replacement or conduit or something like that. I'd be interested in looking at that.
So what are your thoughts on hydrogen fuel cells?
The main limitation is how much you can safely compress and carry around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're getting up to 3,000 psi or a liquid or something like that, it almost makes sense to run it through a compressor first and use the compressor as an engine.
Well, what are they proposing for those Toyota fuel cells in terms of pressure?
I think he said 700 atmospheres, which an atmosphere is 14.5, so that's about right. Then again, maybe they're going liquid. I don't know.
Well, would liquid have to be cooled?
Well, if you compress it enough, it will cool. It'll become liquid that way. So, yeah, I really haven't looked into hydrogen lately. I guess they're the only ones that are still exploring it. But I think the real limitation for me is when he was talking about the built environment for gas stations and how fuel cells could occupy part of that. It's like, well, yeah, but for me, the other thing he was talking about was the advantage of just charging at home and never having to go to a gas station.
Well, I think Toyota, going to a gas station is what people are used to, and they're looking to leverage that, just that familiarity.
Yeah, he did talk about that quite a bit in the thing. That's about where I left off. And having driven electrics now, God, 21, 22 years, it's like, I don't see the appeal.
What do you think of Tesla's plan just to build the batteries into the chassis so that they're just one piece? Like the battery's not a separate item. It's just really embedded in the car in a way that you can't really remove it. Sort of tipping my hand there on what I'm talking about, in my opinion there.
Yeah, so you can't really remove it? What? Well, right now they've got the dropout 5-minute change of the battery pack with the undercarriage battery pack, so not being able to remove it is kind of their selling point of not being able to remove it in a completely opposite manner. So, yeah.
What do they call those when they, let's see, form...
Swappable, detachable, I don't know.
Huh. Well, I cannot research this now. It would involve reading.
Yeah.
You're
getting yourself distracted online again, KMO.
That's true. So
go
ahead.
Oh, well, one of the things that comes to mind is when the Model S first came out, and a couple of guys ran over huge obstacles, and the battery pack caught fire and destroyed the car. Well, they didn't have to recall those cars. They just had to redesign the battery pack so it would be less susceptible to running over big shit in the road. If they built everything into the car itself, they're stuck.
Yep.
That's a recall. That's a massive recall. And if it's in there integrated as much as I think you're saying it will be, that's not fixable.
Right. You're basically just buying cars back from a bunch of people.
Yeah, and who knows if you can take all that stuff out and recycle it at all. Or even safely dispose of. Who knows?
Yeah, well, I think Tesla is, at least in the long term, really strongly committed to the whole circular economy thing of making everything, easily recyclable, reusable. There was that piece, that piece of short fiction that the World Economic Forum has been pimping for months now about, in my city in 2030, I don't own anything. I don't own a house. I don't own a car. I don't own any clothes. Everything's free. And, it's definitely pushing the agenda of the elites. It's like everybody else, the elites will own everything, and then everybody else will own nothing, but they'll be happy because everything's free. Everything they need is free. And where was I going with all that? Oh, it's just totally slipped out of my head now. What were we talking about?
Feudalism?
Well, yeah, I mean that's the criticism, but that's not what I was getting at. Let's see.
Oh, so you weren't endorsing feudalism? Okay.
What does feudalism mean to you, Jim?
Feudalism is a rigid hierarchical social structure where you have inherited wealth commanded by an inherited few, and you have everyone else forced to accept the terms offered by the landlords. I could be wrong. No,
I think that's a good start, and I think it definitely gets at what most people miss when they use the term feudal. They use the terms feudalism and serf. Or peasant, or peasant. Like, I'll hear people saying, just describing a low-tech agricultural lifestyle is a peasant lifestyle. It's like, no, peasant is a social relationship. It's not a job.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, if you want to go out in the middle of the land and hermit out, you're not being a peasant. You're a homesteader.
Yeah, exactly. A peasant. And so John Michael Greer would add to your definition of feudalism that the world of feudalism is governed by personal relationships. They're not, I mean, they are in some cases formalized relationships. You know, people hold certain positions or titles or whatnot, but really in a largely illiterate, in particular, even the, aristocracy being illiterate, everything is personal. It's like, I know you. I remember that. I remember doing this with your dad in such and such a year, and that was 16 years ago. So you must be 14 at this point. That sort of record keeping, and everything was super hyper personal. The Lord knew his peasants,
right?
In a way that Elon Musk doesn't know the name of his employees, but the manor, the Lord up in the manor, he definitely had personal, individual knowledge of all the people who were under him.
Right. It takes advantage of, well, it doesn't take advantage, I should say. It's a workaround the Dunbar limit. So the liege lord has his serfs and his peasants, his vassals. Mm-hmm. They commit an oath of fealty to the lord. And in turn, the lord has to swear an oath of fealty to whomever is above him, the duke or the king or whomever.
Right.
So we all have a manageable social arrangement.
The Lord also has responsibilities to his vassals.
Exactly. To defend, to help out, to send them to the doctor when that was a thing.
But I think the other big point, for me is, and this comes back to, peasant is a social position. It's not a job. It's not a vocation. You can't travel. You can't leave the manor without written permission.
Well, you could at one point. It was pretty common, and then came the Black Death, mm-hmm. and suddenly it's like people couldn't just strike out on their own when the opportunities were limited at home. There were traveling people that would hook up to a merchant or a tinker or something like that and do some traveling. There was those opportunities were available before the Black Death. So there was some social mobility, but there was less stability with that. Then the Black Death hit, and in some cases they lost so many peasants that they were saying, that little oath of fealty I made to the Lord of the land, I'd like to renegotiate that. And suddenly, wait a minute, hang on, this means I don't get everything for free. It's like, well, yeah, but there's less of me and I want to do more. And was it the History of English? I believe it was. There's a really unstable period where, excuse me, they went through the oldest known family correspondence. And these were like a third generation peasants that have risen out of being peasants and have gone into being merchants and landlords themselves. And they've gotten wealthy enough to actually buy castles. And then the descendants of the former occupants of the castles would just come by with weapons and say, get out. Because they wanted to restore the social order now that there had been enough people after the Black Death had decimated but there had been enough people to restore the economic system. Never mind what these upstarts, these scalawags, these ne'er-do-wells were saying about their ownership of the house now. I think we're seeing that a lot in kind of hidden terms today. Like the term scalawag is a Southern term. Yep. It was a white person that did not know his place in society.
Scalawag. Let's look that up. A person who behaves badly but in an amusingly mischievous rather than harmful way, a rascal. Or a white Southerner who collaborated with Northern Republicans during Reconstruction, often for personal profit. The term was used derisively by white Southern Democrats who opposed Reconstruction legislation.
Interesting. I'm sensing a little reconstruction of the definition there, because I think it was a term even before Reconstruction.
Let's see. Looking at Wikipedia here. In the United States history, or in United States history, the term scallywag, sometimes spelled blah, 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 referred to white Southerners who supported Reconstruction policies and efforts after the conclusion of the American Civil War. As the term carpetbagger, the word has a long history of use as a slur in Southern partisan debates. The opponents of the scallywags claimed that they were disloyal to traditional values. The term is commonly used in historical studies as a descriptor of Southern white Republicans, although some historians have discarded the term due to its history of pejorative connotations. But their Wikipedia has a history of the use of the word in Alabama, South Carolina, Louisiana, Mississippi, the mountains, and outside the U.S., so there's a lot of detail to dig into here, which I won't do now.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to have to go back and see where I first saw the definition myself. I think it might have been Russell Hochschildt's book. So,
Well, I've always just heard it, understood it to mean rascal. Somebody who's breaking the rules or up to no good.
Well, If I remember correctly, she said it was where she was in Louisiana. It was kind of like up-jumped in the British tradition.
I don't understand that.
Somebody who acts outside their station is up-jumped.
I see. Let's see. Les says, interesting. Never looked at feudalism from the interpersonal angle. Yes, Black Death facilitated the end of serfdom in the West. Oddly enough, Poland never really got hit by the Black Death. King Kazimierz quarantined the country and seldom lasted longer there, as well as in Russia.
Wow.
Oh, and serfdom, I think he means. Serfdom lasted longer in Poland and Russia. Now, it's my understanding, though, that in times of conflict where, conscripted armies were moving across the landscape, that an individual, of the peasant class couldn't travel without a passport, because it would be assumed that if you were a stranger walking through territory where you didn't live, that you had abandoned, you had deserted your post, or you had deserted the army that you were serving in. So, you were assumed guilty until proven innocent by a written document that you would have in your possession to say, look, I'm allowed to travel.
Well, then again, if you took off your uniform and started plowing the land, you could be accused of going AWOL. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Well, I think the point being that if you are a stranger to the place where you are traveling through, it is assumed that your travel is not approved unless you have a document saying that it is.
Okay.
Of
course, they give you a weapon in the army, so.
Well, yeah, but you can drop that, and.
No, I mean, it's like you can defend your right to travel pretty easily.
Oh yeah, but if you're a lone person and you're confronted by a group of people challenging you to present your travel documents, your pike or your whatever you have is probably not going to get you out of that situation.
No,
and
that's true.
If you are looking to avoid being seen as a deserter, you're probably not going to carry that weapon.
Oh my.
Although I think a lot of the weapons that the peasant soldiers would be using would be things that could double as agricultural tools.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, I think the pike and a few others probably started as agricultural tools and just were extended and sharpened for war.
Whew. All right. I have made no marks on this document.
I was wondering if my screen froze up there.
No. Every now and again, you might see a cursor appear and move around a little bit, and then nothing.
That's just a cat.
Yeah, let's see. 19th century men's fashion. I'm really thinking I'm just going to grab a piece of clip art here, because any art from that period is going to be public domain. How about... Let's see here. I'll throw
they
it
had
up on
clip
the
art
screen.
back in Nietzsche's time?
Well, they didn't call it clip art. They called it illustration, I think, or engraving. Let's see. Upper class, yes. Now, this is an interesting illustration. Artists in
Look
years,
at the ponces.
yeah, artists in years past weren't very good at depicting children as being childlike. They tend to look like little adults. So look at this image. Maybe it's not on your screen yet, but it's
It is.
okay. So we have a grown man holding the hand of a boy who's like half his height. But if you look at the boy's face, it looks like he's got a 5 o'clock shadow. He doesn't look very childish.
No, he's like, it's his little person manservant.
And yes, they're close. Maybe it's his little, like, seeing eye manservant. Here.
It doesn't have quite long enough cane to have a tap, tap, tap. Yeah.
So this is the 20th century, but look at the position of the feet of all these guys. They're all very particular in their posture. I mean, you could really see it in this one, particularly in the kid.
Leg forward, stepping out.
Yeah.
So this is everybody at the time had problems with their sacroiliac.
Let's see. How's about these? All right. Let's copy the image and back.
High class, interesting choice.
Yes. All right, let's make this a bit bigger. All right.
This is Victorian cruising.
This is for the Geb website, and each character has a bio, and they have a list of weapons of choice. And for some characters, these are actual physical implements, but for a lot of the characters, their weapons of choice are just personality traits. So one of Nietzsche's weapons of choice is just 19th century fashion. Alright, but I'm going to have to draw over this a bit to make it stylistically consistent with the other images. Let's see.
Lesnick said that posture was known from the early Middle Ages. It's a similar one that Michelangelo sports. Or Michelangelo's David, I guess.
David's is more of a straight-up classical contrapposto. It doesn't necessarily involve the turnout of one leg.
And my art history professor says part of that posture is due to getting enough leg to support the upper body in marble.
Ah, that makes sense.
If you see later Davids in bronze, they're pretty much dancing on one foot.
Who's got the famous bronze statue of David where he looks very effeminate?
Oh yeah, and he looked like he was like 13.
Yeah,
that's the one I'm thinking of. I can't remember. He lived a little longer than Michelangelo.
Let's see.
I'd be embarrassed to say when I had that art history class.
Yeah, it's been a long time for me too, for sure. That is too fat. Let's see.
Yes, people don't really stand like that anymore, but then again, we don't sit on the ground like hunter-gatherers do. There's a particular squat the hunter-gatherer people employ that stretches their plantar fascia. Yes, I know it well, this plantar fascia. Years ago, I'm driving down the road in my bus, 60-footer, and somebody decides, while he was talking on the phone, to make a right-hand turn. He makes a right-hand turn right in front of a 60-foot bus traveling at about 25 miles an hour. I managed to get the speed down a bit, but strained my plantar fascia. Got
Ah.
plantar fasciitis for about 6 months. That guy is lucky I hit the brake that fast.
Well, a generation of American men just slightly older than you and me would call that hunter-gatherer flat-footed squat a gook squat, because Vietnamese peasants, well, they didn't have a lot of chairs, and they did like to take a rest from time to time, so they could adopt that flat-footed, easy squat. I mean, for me, I can squat flat-footed, but it's an effort, and it's certainly not a relaxing posture.
Yeah, I'm bouncing on the balls of my heels, balls of my toes when I squat like that. Like also posits that perhaps Michelangelo's willy is so small has something to do with the marble.
No, that was a stylistic convention at the time. Big cocks were seen as bestial, and small ones were for refined men. And that went back to like ancient Greece, that convention.
I'd expect that in like civilizations with colder climate.
Yeah, but that's not Greece.
No, that's interesting.
All right. Do you know the comic strip, what's it called? I have to find an example. Hold on a sec. Let's see. Here.
Actually, Lezik, the willy might have something to do with his marbles. Not just the marble.
Wonder Mark. Yeah. So
Wonder Mark.
Yes. So this artist, David Malky, uses a lot of old clip art, but you can see he's drawing over it as well.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that specific one. Yes,
Yeah.
I love that one.
Well, it is his most famous.
The sea lion splainer.
Yeah, it is his most famous, most successful comic. But I see a lot of people will post it. If you're questioning somebody and not explicitly championing some position, but you're just trying to ferret out weaknesses in your opponent's position, then they will go and grab this comic and post it into whatever forum you guys are discussing in, just to say, hey, you can't do that. You're not allowed to just ask questions.
That's kind of a weak and silly argument.
Yeah. But, the comic is funny, therefore, I win. You're in my house. You made a statement in public for all to hear. Are you unable to defend the statements you make, or simply unwilling to have a reasoned discussion? Told you, dude. Sea lions. I have been unfailingly polite, and you two have been nothing but rude. I'm trying to eat breakfast. Very well, we shall resume in an hour.
I like how he actually manages to get on the back of their little steam apparatus as they motor through the city. It's like, what? Suddenly there's a trailer to carry a sea lion?
Well, actually, I think he's in a separate coach. If you look at the wheels in that second panel.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah. But this artist, I mean, if you look at the facial expressions that he draws onto the characters,
subtly manipulated, yes.
Yeah, but you can see he's not the greatest illustrator in the world, but I think he's using a variety of filters to make all of the various elements that he's grabbing and laying down on the page, visually consistent with one another. So it all coheres. Yes. I admire this.
She's getting angrier and angrier.
Yes.
Told you, dude. Sea lions. Oh.
Oh, that's right, Mocha. That's right. So, back to our clip art. So Les asked me earlier if I would, what it would take for me to accept, to go to Mars. Like, would I accept a one-way ticket? And the answer is absolutely not. In fact, my answer was I have zero interest in going to Mars. It looks like a really shitty place to hang out.
I would have to agree. I mean, yeah, it's another rock in the solar system, and it's relatively close, and there's kind of an atmosphere, and it's freezing, but not so cold that, it's not Neptune cold.
Yeah, but it doesn't have
that constant radiation.
Exactly.
From their puny magnetic fields that look almost more like geysers at an amusement park.
Geysers at an amusement park.
Somebody showed like the Van Allen radiation belts on Earth, which are generated by the molten core being pulled by the moon, and really effective way of deflecting all kinds of solar radiation. Well, there's no core that's molten on Mars anymore. It's solid state. So What's left is just whatever, I don't know, radiation is, or electromagnetism is left over in the rock. And they showed, if you put a magnetic spectrometer or something like that on the planet, you have these little tiny, look like the geysers that you have in planned communities, in the little artificial lakes.
Oh, okay. The term fountain.
And they go up like a mile or two, and that's about it.
Yeah. No, they in the movie The Martian, they made a big deal over the fact that the Matt Damon character was getting a lot of radiation exposure being down there on the planet, but he was getting half the radiation exposure that his compatriots up in the spaceship were getting, because he was at least getting shielded a little bit, by the mass of the planet itself, whereas the people in the spaceship, they had no such shielding. Whatever shielding they had was, the shielding that was built into their spaceship.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So they would have been the worse for wear in terms of radiation exposure.
Yeah, the author of the book pretty much said he had to ignore radiation to make it work.
Yeah. Andy Weir.
Andy Weir, yeah. I rather like that book. I liked it a lot more than the movie version.
So the guy whose video I directed you to, Joe Scott,
mm-hmm.
he's pals with Andy Weir. And,
okay.
Yep. There's a video of the two of them chatting. It's worth taking in.
So he's cool by association?
Yeah. That is exactly what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't know if you read the book, but
I did not.
The ending to the movie was just horrible. It was like some director said, "We need a car chase, dude. It's in space." Okay, well, we got to do something car chasey. Like,
I read his next book, or I listened to the audiobook of it, Artemis.
Any good?
Yeah, it is.
Good.
And the version that I heard was like a full-on, audio production with Rosario Dawson as the narrator.
Wow.
Yeah. And, the main character is a young woman, so it worked.
Uh-huh. Wow, yeah, she kind of got screwed out of the Netflix Marvel, didn't she?
Well, she's doing just fine. She's playing Ahsoka Tano in her own series called Ahsoka. It's and the character has already appeared in The Mandalorian, so she is sitting pretty.
That's the one thing I would want to get out of the Disney Channel. I just can't bring myself to pay for it.
Well, sail the pirate seas.
Yeah, I'm not that ambitious.
Well, it's it's the only Star Wars worth watching right now.
Yeah, sadly. I haven't even watched the last two movies.
Don't. There's a war at Lucasfilm.
Yeah, you've mentioned it. It sounds interesting. It's oh dear.
And so everybody loves The Mandalorian and the other stuff that is going to come out of that. And just about everybody hates, the woke Kathleen Kennedy version of Star Wars. But because, the people who run those companies are either hyper committed to wokeism or super afraid of what will happen to them if they, if their apparent conviction wavers, that they keep throwing money away on stuff that nobody wants to watch.
Yeah, the woke aspect I didn't even notice when I saw it. I just objected to the blatant commercialism, when they started showing the rebel signature and people, and then people are going to buy a bunch of rebel symbols and put them on their cars, and sure enough, they're everywhere. I mean, nothing really says loser quite like, I fell for a marketing campaign.
Yeah. Well, they had 2 long-running, really good animated series, Star Wars series, and then after the new movies came out, they created one set in that time period, and it was called Star Wars Resistance. Gag.
Yeah, in fact, I just on the way home saw I think it was a Land Rover with a full front hood Rebel Resistance decal.
God.
And yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, nothing we can do.
Yeah.
I was reading Simon Pegg's autobiography, appropriately titled Nerd Do Well.
Nerd Do Well.
And he was backstage at the Oscars, and he saw George Lucas, and he is a lifelong Star Wars fan, and this was written in the 90s. And Lucas was talking to Richie Cunningham. Who was he?
Yes. Ron Howard.
Ron Howard, yeah. So he's talking to Ron Howard, and he was just kind of keeping his distance because those guys are talking. And Ron Howard turns and looks and says, "Oh, my kids love your movie." And so he got kind of an invite to join the 3 directors chatting, and got a chance to talk to George Lucas, and had a pretty good talk. And he said at the very end of it, he said, "Well, you know what? Take my advice on one thing. Never do a series that takes 30 years to finish."
Yeah.
And sure enough, Simon Pegg has not done anything sequential.
He did write the last Star Trek, J.J. Abrams Star Trek film, and it was his intention that there would be more. What's that?
That's not his. He's just playing in their playground.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely not his.
Like if he did a sequel to Shaun of the Dead, that would just be a disaster.
Yeah, that film absolutely does not call out for a sequel.
I don't know if you've seen The World's End. That's really underrated. I really love that one.
Which one is that?
That was where the main character looks back on his night of drinking at all the pubs and having a drink at all the 12 pubs in the village, and the adventures they had and what happened, and you realize he never finished drinking because they got arrested or something.
Huh. I don't think I've seen that.
It didn't do very well, I think, because why didn't it do very well? It has a very unconventional and unexpected twist, and it makes it very entertaining.
Let's see.
Humor expresses and is a medium of primal truth because you can't ban or prohibit something from laughing. Well, actually, Lessig, I'm not sure something laughing is really funny. That's a sign that rock is not really a rock. Someone laughing, definitely. And if the house is laughing at you, you have problems.
Yeah.
Continuing, but how will Mars be different from a quarantine at home? You'll have virtual reality, comp games, Google, blah, 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 sex robots. Wow, I think Mars will be different in that once the internet goes down, you will have to go and fix it.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of people who are just, neophiles that they would willingly sacrifice their lives just to go to Mars with, no hope of long-term survival. And I'm just not there. That's not me.
Well, you have children to visit on occasion.
That's true.
And you have a cat to pet. I'm sure you won't be able to bring your cat to Mars.
She's not going to be on this Earth that much longer. She's 15 or 16, I forget.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No.
I mean, you can take her to Mars. She won't be on this Earth.
That's true. No.
Lessig said, Jim, you're not that ambitious? I take it you got a handsome face to go with that voice of yours. Usually ambitious people have something to prove, a flaw to even out. Huh? Well, I'm sure they do. I don't.
Yeah.
And my handsome face, let's put it this way, Lessig, I've got a face born for radio.
Yeah.
I understand you got a typo there, Lessig. I had a lot of them myself, and I tease myself relentlessly as well. You're not alone. And yeah, The World's End is funny if you like Simon Pegg movies.
I got to look this up. Two G's.
Ambitious people do have something to prove, a flaw to even out. They do. I don't envy them at all.
The World's End. 2013 science fiction comedy. Let's see. Plot. Gary King's a 40-year-old alcoholic who still remembers the mindset and immaturity of his teenage years, whereas his 4 childhood friends, Peter, Oliver, Stephen, and Andy, have all matured. Each of the 4 has become estranged from him. I've definitely not seen this. All right, so I'll check it out. The World's End. I ponied up. I just went ahead and bought it. I bought the digital version of Blade Runner 2049 yesterday. And I got through probably more than half. I'll finish it tonight. But man, what a great film.
I loved it. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it's as memorable as the first Blade Runner.
Well, I've seen the first Blade Runner 100 times, so it's etched into my consciousness. Every frame of it. But the pacing is really excellent. I mean, it's not rushed. The pacing of the new one, the sequel. It's a long film, and there are some long, slow, like panning shots of atmosphere and landscape and whatnot. But it moves right along.
Yes.
And of course, it is beautifully photographed. That's the
Denis
Villeneuve, trademark. And I'm actually happy that he directed it instead of Ridley Scott.
Yeah, Ridley Scott. I don't know if you've seen a lot of Ridley Scott movies. I mean, everyone's seen Alien. Everybody's seen Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, Alien was. I'm sorry,
Alien was Ridley Scott. Yeah. Well, Dan O'Bannon wrote it.
Oh, that was Ridley Scott. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But then Ridley Scott, if you just look up Ridley Scott as a director and it's like, oh, I'll see that. It's like, wow, Ridley, you are not a screenwriter.
No, he's not. He's definitely not a screenwriter. And that's why Prometheus sucked so hard.
Oh, God. No kidding.
Because they brought in Damon Lindelof. Ugh. To doctor the script. That was a slap in the face of science. And a slap in the face to people who liked the first Alien.
Well, the first Alien made sense. The first Alien has some technical consistency. It didn't make all these just junior high blunders. Holy crap.
Yep.
But if you go back to his catalog, if you can look at everything, he directs something, he makes it pretty, he keeps the action going, people say things, and nothing in Ridley Scott's brain seems to go, wow, that is bad dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's not a screenwriter. It's just...
No,
he's
no.
a photographer.
I don't know if you've heard of prosopagnosia.
No.
It's literally people who cannot recognize faces.
Oh, okay, yeah, I have heard of that. Mm-hmm.
So Ridley Scott is some kind of dialogopropagnosia.
Yep. Doesn't recognize bad dialogue when he hears it.
Nope.
Well, even worse than Prometheus, though, was the next one, Alien Covenant.
I didn't even bother.
Ugh, it's bad. I mean, it's got Michael Fassbender in it doing his thing, and he's really good. But there are so many characters, and you don't know who any of them are, and you don't care when they die. And there's a scene which is just straight out of like a 80s or 90s horror exploitative, teen film where there's this pretty couple and they're naked and they're in the shower and they're kissing and an alien comes and kills one of them while the other watches, and you don't know who they are. I mean, I'm sure 99 out of 100 filmgoers couldn't tell you the names of those characters at the time that they die. There's been no setup for them at all. It's just this, hey, let's do a shower scene. Bad.
So you can't even see if they have a red shirt on.
Well, they was naked. Let's see. Les says, didn't like the second Blade Runner. Maybe I should have seen it in the theater instead of watching the bootleg version with people whispering in Russian in the background and shaking smartphone. Yeah. It's definitely
I hope you didn't pay
film.
anything for that bootleg, Leslie. That sounds awful.
No, it is such a gorgeous film, and the main criticism that I've heard of it is that what's his name, the lead, the main character who plays Kay, Ryan Gosling, that he, that his acting is wooden, and that he has no charisma.
Well, so
it worked for me. It worked.
I was going to say it fit the part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole premise of the first Blade Runner, well, before they cut it, the director's cut of the Bram, is that Harrison Ford was a replicant. So if you have Ryan Gosling, you start with the premise that the investigator is also perhaps a replicant. So you play it that way. That makes sense.
Yeah. I don't share Ridley Scott's enthusiasm for the idea that Deckard was a replicant. He certainly wasn't in the novel.
Well, the novel had nothing to do. I mean,
yeah.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I mean, that was the story of a veterinarian that worked on pet robot pets. That was incredibly not Blade Runner.
Well, Rick Deckard, the android hunter, existed in the novel, but yeah, there was another character who was the J.F. Sebastian character, but he had a different name. But he was very simple. And it was his job to pretend to be a veterinarian and go and pick up people's, malfunctioning electric pets. And somebody called him by mistake when their real cat was dying.
Right.
Yeah.
And he just used the needle to turn it off and realized, wait, this isn't a robot. Oh, my God, I've killed a cat.
Yeah.
No, I don't see how they can even say that it was based on the book. There was so little similarity between the two works.
Mainly the Voight-Kampff test was the real connection between the two works, because a lot of the questions that first Holden and then Deckard asks replicants when administering the test were straight from the book, like word for word from the book.
Like I said, that was detail I wouldn't have remembered having read the book. 85? Something like that.
That's probably when I read it for the first time. I've read it a couple times over the years, maybe 3 times.
No, I haven't managed to read any of the Philip K. Dick books more than once, but I think I got up to 30 of them.
I'll tell you the one that's worth revisiting is Man in a High Castle, or Man in the High Castle.
Yeah. Yes, I have read that one twice.
Yeah,
But
I
only
read that
for
as a
podcast
teenager,
I did.
and I just scratched my head. I was like, "Huh? That I don't know what he was going for there. Bring me, let me on to the next Philip K. Dick novel." And then I reread it, I don't know, less than 10 years ago, and I was like, "Oh, this is brilliant."
Yeah, and there's a lot of things, and there's like, oh, okay, so if you know the history, oh wait, it diverged. Everything diverges. That was the confusing thing when I first read it. It's like, wait, that's not right. That's not. And then I realized, oh, this is alternative histories. He's actually referring to another alternative history being written by the man in the high castle. Got
Yes.
it. Okay. From there, you can go anywhere.
Yeah, it's an alternate history where the Allied powers won World War II, but it's not our history. It's
right.
Yeah.
And then he makes references to some biblical passages, which are actually the opposite of the actual biblical passages. And that was supposedly with the man in the high castle, who is supposedly in touch with our reality. No, he's in touch with another reality outside of ours, but it's different from the one that they're in.
So did you see the Amazon series, Man in the High Castle?
I have not yet. No, I don't want to. Jeff lives too close to me. I don't want to give him any more money. One day.
No, I don't recommend it.
I wouldn't mind seeing. I mean, you were pointing out that the third season came out. It was completely divorced from the source material.
Well, even the second season.
Then the first two.
I didn't watch the third season because their marketing was so. It was the beginning of when Amazon and other companies joined the resistance and were posturing of, we're fighting fascism with our show. And
yes, by being the largest company on earth.
Yeah.
No irony there at all, folks. Pay no attention.
But if you recall in the novel, the United States is. The East is controlled by the Nazis. The West is controlled by the Japanese. And there's this neutral zone in the Rocky Mountains. And in the novel, we never visit the East. There's not a single scene set in Nazi-occupied America.
Right.
And, because Nazi imagery is just so sexy, they couldn't possibly do that, if they're going to flesh this out into a series. So we get the Gabriel Byrne character. No, it's not. It's Rufus Sewell. We get the Rufus Sewell character, who's a man born in America, but when the Nazis won, he switched teams and he became a high-ranking Nazi official. And so we get this new character introduced, and he's over in Nazi-occupied New York. So in the TV show, we're constantly flipping over to the Nazi-occupied America, which was not included in the book at all. And then in season 2, we actually go over to Germany, and we get to see what Germany after the Nazis won World War II looks like.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting.
I can see that. I mean, the source material is so thin. They ain't going to have to fill it if they're going to go more than half a season. Right.
But, in the book, the alternate history takes the form of a book. The grasshopper lies heavy is this, forbidden book. But books are boring. Nobody likes books. So in the TV show, instead of this, this alternate history novel that tells of an Allied victory alternate history, they have these series of film, like newsreels, that get passed around. And they're just, World War II newsreels from our reality, our history. And it's like, I didn't like that change, but I understood it, Nobody reads books. But books are boring.
Right, but it's pretty clear how the man in the high castle writes the alternate history. How do they get a hold of an alternate history without, animating it?
There are characters who can move between realities, and that's in the novel as well. There was the Japanese man. He ends up in a San Francisco where the Japanese are not the aristocracy, and he's shocked at these white people who are being impertinent to him.
Once you dive into Philip K. Dick, it's hard to get out sometimes.
Yeah, I never finished Radio Free Albemuth or Valus, which are
That was, oh man, Ubik, Valus, and Radio Free Ebelmuth. That was after his weird psychedelic experience when he had the delivery from the pharmacy,
well,
and he was suddenly transported to Rome.
the three books that are related that way are Valus, The Divine Invasion, and the the Transmigration of Timothy Archer.
No, Transmigration is separate from that. I think it's Ubik.
Ubik is a much earlier novel. Let's see.
Which one?
I think Ubik is earlier than his weird experience. Let's see. Valus Trilogy.
If it is a part of that, it is only mentioned in passing in Transmigration, because Transmigration is really focused on Timothy Archer and other characters related.
Okay, so looking at Wikipedia here, the Valus Trilogy is a set of science fiction philosophical novels by author Philip K. Dick, which include Valus, The Divine Invasion, and the Transmigration of Timothy Archer.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to totally read Transmigration because I didn't get any of the Valus out of it. Wow. Then again, there are some periods in the middle when I was almost falling asleep watching that one, or reading that one. It's a real sleeper of a book, and then suddenly something happens. I'm like, oh, finally. And Valus wasn't my favorite at all. Divine Invasion was a little bit better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The thing I remember best from Divine Invasion is you've got this little kid, Jesus, who comes across a dog who's just been run over by a car and is dying. And the kid stops to have a conversation with this dying dog. And the dog says, well, you're God, right? You can heal me. Why don't you heal me? And little baby Jesus or little kid Jesus is thinking it over, and he says, well, have you ever killed? And the dog says, oh, yeah, totally killed. I mean, my jaws are designed to kill. I love killing. And the kid's like, I'm going to let you go out and pass away, but I'll write a poem about you. Or I think it's his mentor who writes the poem.
Wow. Oh, yeah. Remember this? There was one short story, and then he did it in one of his novels where he had this assassin robot that looked like a lump of clay, and it was climbing a wall. It would put somebody's fingerprint down, and then it would take a step with somebody's shoe in exactly the right configuration and apply exactly that weight to make sure the imprint was in the rug. And then right when he was near something that was recording his voice, he would use the character's voice, and then he would kill somebody, and then he'd turn into a television set. It was so detailed. It's like that was what he did really well. Sometimes plot, not so much.
What did you think of the Richard Linklater film version of A Scanner Darkly?
It gave me a headache.
Did it?
No. Just the way they rotoscanned it or whatever they're doing. Mm-hmm. It's like, is it animation or is it not? I was confused. It was pretty close to the book, though. Oh,
very close. I mean, they changed the setting. They made it a modern setting instead of the 1970s.
Right. But, yeah, the way they filmed it just gave me a headache. I don't know if it would have been any better in live action, to tell you the truth. But
it would have been a lot more expensive if they were going to do live action.
Yeah. Well, Woody Harrelson was one of the guys, and was it
Robert Downey Jr.?
What was the other? Huh?
Robert Downey Jr. also lived in the house with Keanu.
Yeah, those guys were kind of perfect for drug-addled roomies.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I got a good chuckle out of. They both did excellent job as drug-addled roomies. Yeah.
And they followed the book verbatim, with all their adventures. Yeah. And there was one other roommate who's the actor who plays him isn't famous, and he wasn't a roommate; he was a friend who would come over. But he was the one who thought he had bugs on his skin, and he would put them in a jar, and then he would climb into the shower and pull his dog into the shower and just scrub. So that was straight from the book, and they had that in the movie. And then there was the 10-speed bike, that had, I guess, 6 gears. and they couldn't figure out how you could have 10 speeds with just 6 sprockets.
Oh, man.
And, you know, the main character is a police officer, but he's undercover, and he's wearing, you know, like, when he goes into the police station to talk to his superiors, he puts on the suit that hides his identity. So the, you know, when they're all watching surveillance footage taken in the home together, the superiors don't know which of the people present is their police officer. But since nobody in that crew could figure out the whole 10 speeds out of 6 sprockets thing, they concluded that it doesn't matter who in this group you are, you're obviously taking too many drugs if you can't figure this out.
The movie did that well. I couldn't figure out the what did they call it, the slide suits, what they were called in the book or something like that. It was some weird suit, and he tried to describe it, and I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And to see it in the movie like that, I was like, oh, okay, that's what he was describing. I just couldn't picture it. All right. Yeah, that whole concept of the cops don't even know who the cops are.
Right, because the police department is so corrupt and so thoroughly infiltrated by, you know, elements of organized crime that the cops have to hide their identity from the cops.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Let's see. Yep, scramble suit. So, when performing his work as an undercover agent, Arctor goes by the name Fred and wears a scramble suit that conceals his identity from other officers. Then he is able to sit in a police facility and observe his housemates through holoscanners, audiovisual surveillance devices that are placed throughout the house. Arctor's use of the drug causes the 2 hemispheres of his brain to function independently or compete. When Arctor sees himself in the videos saved by the scanners, he does not realize that it is him. Through a series of drug and psychological tests, Arctor's superiors at work discover that his addiction has made him incapable of performing his job as a narcotics agent. They do not know his identity because he wears the scramble suit, but when his police supervisor suggests to him that he might be Bob Arctor, he is confused and thinks it cannot be possible.
Yeah, and later he goes to the place where... Oh, that's a spoiler. I shouldn't do any spoilers. All right.
It's fine. There'll be 2 people listening.
But it's a nice closed loop, you know, is the particular drug that they're taking and how it's like completely destroying society, but it's all part of the whole fabric of society.
And the film ends just like the book too. Like
yes, oh yeah, it's dead on. The book wasn't one of my favorites, and the movie, like I said, it's flashing kind of gave me a headache. Well,
I liked the previous film that he did in that style, Waking Life, and I thought that Scanner Darkly was an evolutionary step in terms of that new use of rotoscoping that they were doing.
Okay.
But yeah, it has a very hallucinatory effect to it. Like, there are no hard edges in the film. Everything sort of slides over everything else.
Yeah.
Do you remember Alex Jones in Scanner Darkly?
No, I don't.
Oh, it's a bit part, but he's standing out in front of the 7-Eleven with a megaphone, and he's shouting at nobody, screaming about the fake drug war and how, the more money they spend to fight the drugs, the worse society gets. And and everything he's saying, it's simultaneously unhinged because it's Alex Jones, but everything that he's saying makes sense and applies to the real world drug war. But as he's giving this rant,
yes,
a black van pulls up. Some guys with cattle prods get out. They zap him and they throw him in the van, and the van drives away. And the only witness to this is the Keanu Reeves character, who's just walking by the scene as it happens, and he doesn't have anything to say about it. He just kind of shakes his head and keeps walking.
Well, I guess when I saw the movie, I didn't know who Alex Jones was, so that's probably why I missed it.
And Alex Jones is in Waking Life as well. He and Richard Linklater, wow. They both live in Austin, Texas, and they're longtime friends.
Okay. Was Alex Jones? What was Linklater's first movie? Slackers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Slacker. I'm trying to think now if he might have been in that. Can't remember.
Oh, there's a long string of comments here from Les. I haven't been looking at the chat. What do we got here?
Yeah, well, he asked if I would marry a replicant, even if she was basically her ideal female form. I don't think I could marry a replicant. I think that might be illegal. But keep in closet.
Have at home, yeah.
Now he's doubling down here. He was high when he saw Scanner Darkly, so he finished the movie thoroughly confused. No, I'm going to say you're not going to be thoroughly confused unless you're trying to work it out and not high. If you haven't read the book and you watch that movie, you'll be thoroughly confused. If you're high, you'll be entertained at the same time. Okay.
Linklater never did another rotoscope film after that. I think what people do these days is just performance capture. You know, they wear the suits with the ping pong balls on them and the dots on the face and the camera on the boom pointed back at the face. And
right.
I think that technology has superseded the idea that you would shoot something on video and then painstakingly draw over every frame.
Yeah. Which is going to be lots of work for a Gollum guy.
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis. Yeah.
Let's see. Scanner Darkly. Alex Jones. And here it is. Okay, don't play. Nope. Just give me the URL. And I will post it into the chat. And then I'm gonna sign off. As soon as I get this posted into the chat. Where is it? There. All right. So, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the Zoom call going, but I'm going to stop the stream, and then we can watch the Alex Jones bit together.